Welcome back to the Hillbilly Kitchen. It's a mess, of course. We are going to be making a delicious French bread, and it's going to be super easy, and it's one of these ways that you can use up all the rosemary that you grew in your garden this year. So we are going to do a French loaf with rosemary and garlic. You're going to love this recipe. Super easy, and it doesn't take long to make. So I love baking bread. Sometimes I'm in a rush though, and I love when I can alter a recipe to fit my needs and my time. So we're going to start off with 2 cups of lukewarm water. I ended up heating this up for a minute. And then I'm going to use 1 package of Fleischmann's Rapid Rise Instant Yeast. And I'm going to use the warm water and mix it with this yeast here until it dissolves, and then I'm going to set this aside for 15 minutes. What I love about this bread is that it is only going to take about 2 hours from start to finish to make this bread. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get all my rosemary off the stems so I can chop it finely. And then I have some cloves of garlic that I'm going to add. I think I have about 10 cloves of garlic. And I'm going to incorporate this into the dough when I'm kneading it. You don't have to add the rosemary and garlic. You could add any kind of herb you want. You could use some dried herbs. I use herbs de Providence a lot in my French loaves, or you can just make a plain French loaf. After your yeast water has sat for the 15 minutes, you're going to take 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. And you're going to mix that in till it dissolves. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding our flour, about a cup at a time. This recipe calls for 6 to 8 cups of flour. When I was making it in this video, I added a little over 5 cups of flour. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more. You do want a nice, smooth, kind of wet dough, but not sticky. And I ended up kneading this dough for about 7 minutes. And it was just nice. You could feel it was fluffy and airy and silky smooth. You're going to want to add your herbs at this point. So I'm adding the rosemary and the garlic. And I'm going to knead that in for a couple minutes so it gets really incorporated in this bread. After kneading it, I'm going to use the same bowl to let it rise, and I'm going to add about a teaspoon of extra virgin light olive oil, and I'm going to drizzle it all around, and then I'm going to roll my bread dough all in the oil so it's evenly coated on the outside. And then I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to set it in the oven, not warmed, for 45 minutes. So we are going to go ahead and get our sheet pan ready for our French loaves. And we are going to lightly oil this, spread the oil around evenly, just with a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And then I'm going to add some cornmeal on the bottom there. Just sprinkle it all over the top evenly so that when your bread cooks up, it just helps create a really yummy crust texture on the bottom. I just love doing that. There is something so rewarding about homemade bread, the fresh, crisp taste, and just your family getting some delicious homemade bread that you made to go with dinner. So after you let it rose, we're going to punch it down. We're going to reform our dough ball, and we're going to cover it and let this rest for 5 minutes. After you've let it rest that 5 minutes, we're going to work it just a little, and we are going to cut it in half. I always seem to make one a little bigger than the other when I make these French loaves. But you're going to cut this in half. You could do a giant French loaf if you wanted to, with just the whole dough ball. But I like doing these skinny French loaves. So then I'm going to go ahead and just flour my hands and a little bit in the bowl, so the dough doesn't stick to my hands at all, and it's easy to work. And I am just going to hand form the loaves. And you don't have to work it a lot. I'm just going to kind of stretch out the dough. And I formed this log-like shape, and you just kind of stretch out that dough and work it and make sure it's nice and smooth and as pretty as you can get it. This is a rustic, beautiful, quick and easy bread, so, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, after we shape our loaves, we are going to stick this in the oven to rise. And if you have extra time, you're going to want to let this rise double the times I'm telling you. This is an altered recipe just so it's quick and easy, and I have fresh bread with dinner. And we always have a loaf left over for some chicken salad sandwiches or make tortas with. It's the perfect bread to use for the next couple of days. It holds that softness. So once you have your loaves shaped the way you want, we're going to cover this and we're going to let this rise for a half hour. But if you have the extra time, let it rise for a full hour. Then we're going to take it out of the oven and we're going to score the top here with the knife. And I also wiped water on the top. I brushed cold water on the top, and we have a pan under here with water in it. And as it cooks, it's going to steam underneath this French bread. And about halfway through your cook time, about 25 minutes in at 420, you're going to turn this so it evenly cooks. And you're going to cook it for an additional 20 minutes. Now, I have a propane oven and it runs a little cool, so you might want to cook it at 400. And after the 45 minutes of cook time, you're going to pull this out of the oven, and you'll tell by knocking on it or tapping it. If it sounds hollow and hard, then you know that it's ready to come out. And then we're going to let this completely cool before we slice into it. So here's one of the loaves of my quick and easy rosemary garlic French bread. Let's cut it open. I let it cool. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that's nice. It's not dense, it's airy, soft, but this is nice and crunchy too. Now this is a quick bread, so this recipe has been altered. It's been shortened, but it comes out really good when you're in a hurry to make dinner because you've had too much time playing outside or just enjoying the summer. So I hope you enjoy the recipe.